"You've ruined our lives," my sister screamed. My mom added, "We'd all be happier without you." I didn't argue, didn't yell, just got up and walked away in silence. This morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls, a dozen texts, and a family realizing too late what they'd lost when I finally chose peace over their chaos. I was never the cherished one. That role belonged solely to my sister, the golden child, a figure seemingly beyond reproach, no matter how cruel her whims, no matter the extent of her impunity. My mother, she simply adored her. And me? I was merely present, an afterthought, a phantom within my own home. This had always been my reality. I quickly learned that my thoughts held no weight. My aspirations were trivial, my emotions either dismissed or derided. If my sister faltered in a test, it was my fault for distracting her. If a friendship dissolved, I was likely the cause. If something broke, I must have instigated it. And my mother? She swallowed every word, every accusation, without question. I tirelessly strived to embody the perfect daughter. I excelled academically, maintained a quiet demeanor even when insulted, never retaliated, never fought back. I clung to the desperate hope that perhaps, just perhaps, if I sufficiently proved my worth, they might finally love me as they loved her. But nothing shifted. The entire facade shattered the night they declared I had ruined their lives. It began with a heated exchange, though I was merely a silent bystander, absorbing their verbal assault. My sister had failed a course, and instead of accepting responsibility, she, once again, cast the blame upon me. I don't even recall the logic. Perhaps my mere existence was a source of stress. "You've ruined our lives," she shrieked. I barely had time to register her words before my mother's chilling echo. "We'd be happier without you." That was it. The breaking point. No tears welled, no scream escaped, no pleas for retraction. I simply nodded. Then, I walked to my room, snatched a backpack, and stuffed in whatever I could. They offered no impediment. They didn't even watch me depart. And just like that, I was gone. I stepped into the vast expanse of the night. The weight of my backpack a familiar burden on my shoulders, yet it was dwarfed by the crushing heaviness in my chest. I walked without purpose, driven only by the desire to put distance between myself and the house I had never truly considered home. The air was frigid. I recall that vividly, its bite sharp against my skin, but I felt no shiver. I was numb. I had always envisioned my departure as a cinematic moment, tears streaming, a lingering farewell glance. But there was none of that. No one pursued me. No one called my name. No one cared that I had no destination. I possessed no strategy, no safety net. My savings were laughable, a paltry couple of $100 gleaned from clandestine tutoring gigs. But one truth was absolute. I would never return. I secured a cheap motel room for the night, my hands trembling as I paid. I stared at the bed, unable to bring myself to lie down. Instead, I perched at the small desk, the dim yellow light flickering above, attempting to chart a course. I lacked a degree, connections, and substantial funds. Yet, I held one significant advantage. My entire life had been spent being ignored, underestimated. No one had ever offered me a handout. If I was to succeed, I would have to forge something from nothing. I began with what I knew, studying. It sounded ludicrous then, but I was adept at it. I had spent years excelling in school, tutoring peers, clarifying complex subjects for others. Perhaps, just perhaps, I could transform that into something tangible. The following day, I entered a small cafe, ordered the most inexpensive coffee, and utilized their complimentary Wi-Fi to apply for every online tutoring position I could locate. I set my rates low, just enough to attract initial interest. At first, it was barely sustenance. I subsisted on instant noodles and discount store groceries. I rented a cramped room in a shared apartment with 3 strangers who barely acknowledged my presence, but it was still infinitely superior to where I had come from. Because every morning, I awoke with the certainty that no one would shout at me, no one would assign blame for their failures, no one would declare I was ruining their lives. And that, in itself, was enough. Months drifted by. My tutoring engagements multiplied. One client blossomed into 3, then 10. Soon, my earnings were sufficient to secure a tiny studio apartment, little more than a box, but it was mine. Yet, through it all, my family remained silent. Not a single call. Not on my birthday, not on holidays, not even to ascertain my existence. It hurt, with the dull, persistent ache of old wounds, deep, silent, lingering. But I told myself it was fine. If they were indifferent, then so was I. A year into my new existence, circumstances shifted dramatically. I had cultivated a reputation as a specialist in college entrance exam tutoring. Students from across the country sought me out, desperate for my assistance. But I was still trading time for money, a model I knew was unsustainable. That's when an idea ignited. What if I could transform my lessons into something grander, something scalable? I immersed myself in digital marketing, devouring hours of free YouTube content, poring over every article I could find. Then, I began crafting my own online course, the ultimate SAT prep guide. It was a gamble. Every spare dollar was poured into course design, website development, and advertising. Initially, sales merely trickled in, a sporadic purchase here, another there. Then, something shifted. Word of mouth began to ripple. Students raved about my methods, sharing them online. And then, almost overnight, it exploded. I awoke one morning to find my sales had tripled, then quadrupled. Within a few months, I was earning more than I had ever conceived possible. I relocated to a sleek, high-rise apartment, the kind I once only dreamed of. I traveled, encountered individuals who genuinely respected me, forged friendships unburdened by obligation or familial ties. I had done it. I had built myself from the ground up. And my family, they were utterly absent. Not a single message, not a single call. They didn't care about me. Until this morning. My phone buzzed. I barely glanced at it, but then I saw the notifications. Mom, 6 missed calls. Sister, 8 missed calls. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. After all this time, after they had made their indifference so unequivocally clear, I exhaled slowly. I had transformed. I was no longer the frail, desperate girl they had cast from their lives. I was no longer their punching bag. Whatever they sought, it wouldn't be an apology. And I had no intention of making it easy for them. I sat there, fixated on the screen, for what felt like an eternity but was, in reality, mere minutes. My mind raced. What could they possibly want after all this time? My mother had never once offered remorse for her treatment, never acknowledged her consistent favoritism toward my sister. And my sister? She hadn't even seemed to notice my absence until now. But now, after everything, they wanted me. I finally decided to answer. Hearing her voice after such a protracted silence felt surreal. "Hello," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Sweetie, please, we need to talk." Mom's voice trembled. "Sweetie." She hadn't called me that in years. The false tenderness stung. "What's happening?" I asked, making no effort to conceal my disbelief. There was a lengthy pause. We've fallen on hard times," Mom continued, her voice fracturing. "Your sister, she's been struggling with school again, and with everything going on, we just don't have enough. We need your help." I bit my lip, a peculiar blend of satisfaction and rage bubbling within me. This was why they were reaching out now. "What kind of help?" I inquired, maintaining my composure. "We need money," she blurted out. "Your sister's tuition is due, and we have bills we can't pay. I know we've never been there for you, but please, we're struggling. We need you to help us. We know it's a lot to ask, but please, we've tried everything." I could hear her sniffle, perhaps genuine, perhaps merely guilt attempting to worm its way back in. "Please," she repeated. "We need you back. We need your support." The words hung in the air, my support. The very support they had scorned for years. I closed my eyes momentarily, struggling to rein in the surge of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. How could they possibly believe this was acceptable? It was the first time in a long time I felt something beyond mere indifference. It was laughable. "You're serious?" I said, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You truly believe I'll return and assist you after everything?" A pause, followed by my mother's desperate voice. "Please, don't do this. We know we messed up, but we're your family. You can't just abandon us like this. You never cared about me when I needed you." I retorted, my voice trembling with suppressed fury. "You were too preoccupied with your golden child. You allowed me to vanish. You told me you'd be better off without me." I paused, wrestling with the burgeoning rage, but held it in check. I wouldn't allow them to witness the depth of their wound. I wouldn't allow them to twist this back on me. I don't owe you anything, I stated, each word sharp as shattered glass. Another prolonged silence. Then my sister's voice broke through, sounding frantic and panicked. I know I was horrible to you, but I need your help. I messed up, okay? I didn't mean it. I've been trying to fix things, but I don't know what to do anymore. Fix things? I almost scoffed. How do you fix years of ingrained pain? I don't want your apologies, I said coldly. And I don't owe you my money or my assistance. You can figure it out, just like I did. But please, just. My sister's voice wavered, but I cut her off. No, you should have considered this before. You cast me out of your lives. I felt my heart pound as I ended the call, but the surge wasn't solely anger. It was satisfaction. The satisfaction of knowing they needed me. After years of silence, of pretending I didn't exist, they needed me. I rose, pacing the room, allowing the reality of the situation to fully sink in. They weren't calling to apologize. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they needed me to mend their mess. And now that they were struggling, they recognized what they had discarded. But it was irrelevant to me. They no longer deserved me. I was finished. Yet, deep down, a part of me yearned to prolong their agony, to make them squirm a little longer. The phone vibrated again. I glanced at the screen. It was Mom. The same pleading tone in her message. Please, I know we can't undo the past, but we need you. I grinned. They had no inkling of what they were inviting. The phone vibrated once more, a new message from my mother illuminating the screen. Please, I'm begging you. We don't know where else to turn. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. A part of me craved to ignore it completely. After all, hadn't I already given them my definitive answer? But there was something in the raw desperation of her tone that made me hesitate. For a fleeting moment, I shook my head. No, I wouldn't. Soften. I wouldn't be the one to miraculously improve their lives again. The truth was, I had forged something entirely for myself, my own domain, so to speak. My triumph wasn't merely financial. It was the authority to determine who belonged in my life. And my family no longer merited that privilege. I set the phone down, walked to the window, and gazed out at the cityscape. From this vantage point, everything appeared so distant, so minuscule. The trials of my former life felt as if they belonged to another person entirely. I was no longer that individual. I was no longer their burden. Yet, the messages persisted. I took a deep breath. I wouldn't succumb. I wouldn't let them manipulate me with their manufactured guilt. And yet, deep down, a flicker of something remained. Perhaps pity, perhaps curiosity, perhaps something darker. But I resisted. The next morning, I awoke to the familiar vibration of my phone on the nightstand. Another glance confirmed it was. From my sister this time. I hesitated. Should I even bother reading it? But my thumb swiped across the screen before conscious thought could intercede. The message appeared. I know I can't change the past, but I've been trying so hard to get into college. They rejected me, and now Mom's saying that if we don't get the money for the retake, I'll never make it. Please, please, I'm so sorry. I felt a pang of something unfamiliar. Not sympathy, not guilt, but a sensation that made me pause. Was this genuine? Was this truly my sister begging, or was she merely playing her assigned role? I took a deep breath, my hand trembling as I typed my response. You never cared when I needed you. Why should I care now? I hit send, and the weight that settled in my chest felt heavier than anticipated. A part of me felt cold, detached, cloaked in the protective armor I had painstakingly constructed over the years. But another part yearned to believe her. But I couldn't. As the day progressed, I continued my work, but every time my gaze drifted to my phone, more notifications appeared. Calls, texts, voicemails. They were relentless. I could feel their desperation seeping. Through the screen, through their words. They were beginning to collapse under the weight of their own decisions. But what did they expect from me? They had made their bed. They had chosen their path. Now it was time for them to face the consequences. But then, at 7 p.m., I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. A message from Mom. I need to talk to you. This isn't just about money. I know I messed up. We messed up, but I'm asking you as a mother to come home. I need you. We need you. Please don't leave us like this. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. For a second, I genuinely considered calling her back. Perhaps I could listen to her. Perhaps I could find some way to make this work. But then I recalled everything they had put me through, the way they had treated me as if I didn't matter. I wasn't just going to erase that. I wasn't their savior. With a deep exhale, I typed, "You had your chance. I'm done." I hit send, and something within me cracked. I knew I had made the right choice, but simultaneously, a lingering ache persisted in my chest. Because deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, what if this truly was their final plea? What if they were genuinely suffering? But in the end, I had learned one crucial lesson. I couldn't fix them. They were beyond my saving. And if they desired anything from me, it had to be on my terms. I set my phone down and tried to push them from my mind. But the next evening, as I sat in my living room, scrolling through my phone, I heard a knock at the door, a sharp, rapid rap, followed by a pause. I looked up, slightly bewildered. Who could it be? I rose and walked toward the door, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. Something felt amiss. Peering through the peephole, my stomach lurched. There they stood, Mom, Dad, and my sister, assembled on my doorstep, looking as if they hadn't slept in days. Their faces were drawn, pale, etched with weariness. But it wasn't merely their appearance that accelerated my pulse. It was the audacity of their uninvited presence. I froze for a moment, uncertain how to proceed. A part of me wished to ignore them, to retreat and pretend I hadn't seen them. But the rage I had suppressed surged forward. I wouldn't allow them to invade my sanctuary after everything they had done. I opened the door just enough to fully see them, my heart pounding in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice low but vibrating with fury. Mom stepped forward first, her eyes wide with desperation. Please, just hear us out," she pleaded, her voice trembling. I stared at her, the same woman who had declared she'd be better off without me, who had perpetually pushed me aside. And now, she stood on my doorstep, soliciting assistance. "What the hell are you doing here?" I repeated, my tone escalating. "You think simply appearing at my door will make me take you back? You think I'm going to forget everything you've done?" Dad shifted uncomfortably behind Mom, but remained silent. My sister stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the ground, avoiding mine. We're sorry," Mom stammered, her voice breaking. "We've been trying to reach you, but we know we've messed up. It's just so hard, and we don't know what else to do. You're the only one who can help us. The only one who can help you." I felt the anger surge like a tidal wave. "You didn't need me before. Why now? You had years to fix this." I snapped. "Years, and you never once bothered to reach out, to make things right. Not when it mattered. And now you believe you can just show up here and make everything okay." They were silent for a moment, clearly taken aback by my coldness. Mom's eyes welled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to care. "We've been struggling," she continued, her voice a desperate whisper. "We don't have money for rent. Your sister's future is slipping away. I don't know what else to do." "Don't tell me you don't know what else to do," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You had choices. You made choices, and I wasn't part of them. But now that everything's falling apart, suddenly you want me." Mom took a step forward, her hand outstretched. "Please, just listen." I slammed the door in her face, the resounding thud reverberating through the house. The noise echoed in my ears, and for a second, I felt a rush of power. I could finally control this situation. But as I stood there, my hand resting on the door handle, something gnawed at me, something twisted in my gut. It wasn't guilt, it was something worse. It was the realization that they had come here, to me, because they had nowhere else to turn. And they had appeared not because they desired to mend our relationship, not because they were truly remorseful, but because they needed me. And I despised it. They didn't deserve me. But the anger wasn't the sole emotion I felt. There was a part of me that yearned to inflict pain, to make them fully comprehend the depth of their error, to make them feel the full weight of their own actions. And the very fact that they believed they could simply appear on my doorstep fueled my rage more than anything else. I walked away from the door, leaving them standing on the other side. But they didn't leave. I could hear their muffled voices. Outside, Mom was pleading. My sister was crying. Dad was attempting to console them. I couldn't bear it any longer. The anger within me was overwhelming, and I knew that if I didn't act, I would regret it. So, I opened the door again. There they were, still waiting, still desperate. Desperation was etched across their faces. Mom's eyes were red and swollen from weeping. My sister's head hung low in shame. And Dad, he looked defeated, like a man who had lost everything and possessed no roadmap to recovery. For a moment, I simply stood there, absorbing the sight of them. The family that had wounded me, the family that had made me feel worthless, invisible. And now, they stood here, seeking aid. But what did I owe them? Nothing. I took a deep breath, and then, without a single word, I looked at them one last time. No, you don't get to come here and expect forgiveness just because you're struggling now. The words emerged cold, hard, like a knife slicing through the tension. I felt not an ounce of regret as I uttered them. They deserved to hear the unvarnished truth. You had years to fix this. I continued, my voice steady but firm. Years to recognize what you lost. But you didn't care then. And I'm not going to be your solution now. I saw Mom open her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand, silencing her. I've built my life, my success, from the ground up. And I'm not going to let you destroy it too. You don't get to waltz back into my life and expect everything to magically change because you've hit rock bottom. Their eyes began to well up again, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, just a quiet satisfaction in knowing I was finally prioritizing myself. Go, I said simply, my voice unwavering. Fix your own mess. I'm done with that. I closed the door for the final time. Weeks passed. I continued living my life. My business flourished, my professional network expanded, and I felt more vibrant than ever. I had become the person I had always aspired to be, the individual who didn't need to apologize for her achievements, the one who had learned to release the toxic elements of her past. I never heard from them again. Not a single message, not a single call. And you know what? That was perfectly fine. It was a quiet peace I hadn't realized I craved. As time went on, I came to comprehend a vital truth. The people who hurt you, the people who abandon you, are not the ones you should seek validation from. You are the one who matters. You are the one who dictates your future. And ultimately, I had embraced one very simple truth. You cannot perpetually give to those who never offered anything in return. The door closed for good.